Now this brings us to Amiens. And remember I said that these churches were originally painted. This is obviously a light show, but what they're doing here is recreating, using 3D mapping technology and projection technology, some of the painting that would have happened. You get the idea of how bright these cathedrals originally would have been, because each of these statues would have been painted. And oftentimes, even the background, the simple wall and column, would have been painted with stripes and chevrons and other forms, many of which we'll see as we move forward. Now, Amiens, in terms of the exterior, the church is destroyed, or the old cathedral is destroyed by fire in 1218. And it's rebuilt by, or the rebuilding is begun by the bishop there. And in this case, it's 144 feet tall. 144 being an apocalyptic number in Christian doctrine at the time. The facade is much more ornate and much more cavernous in terms of those portals than anything we've seen before. It seems to have a great deal more depth and a lot more statuary. We see the glazed windows. We see that rose window with that fine stonework called tracery that's being used here. And the rose window has been raised up higher. In previous cathedrals, it would have actually been roughly around here in terms of where it sat with the rest of the structure. But here they're moving it up, which means the nave is also vertically much higher than what we've seen elsewhere. And we have buttressing, which you can't see in this image, but there's a lot of use of flying buttresses to, again, open up those walls so that they can have thinner walls and more glass. As we move inside, you notice that the nave has become even narrower and even taller. And I've got an elevation here on the right, again giving you that scale of a person versus the church. These people versus this 144-foot tall structure. The interior is probably around 12 stories, give or take. So it's massive. And it's going to be awe-inspiring if you ever get a chance to walk into it. So we have a narrow nave with higher vaults, creating a greater sense of verticality. We have a 3-part elevation. Again, we have our aisle, our gallery, and our clerestory, which you see here, here, and here. We see elegant proportions and a very, very large clerestory being incorporated into this, thus bringing in more light. Because, of course, there's some blockage. The flying buttresses and rest of the structure block some of the light coming in through the aisle, but the clerestory being above most of that doesn't have the same issue. We also see the brightness of the choir, which is almost entirely glass. The walls are almost entirely glass at this point. So it really does call your attention to the miracle that would be happening at the front of the church. And we see a 4-part rib vault again rather than the 6-part. Again, that simplification that we've started to see being used here because they're not getting the help from the 6-part that they wanted. It's just not worth the extra materials and extra effort. So from here, we're going to be moving to the High Gothic. Well, actually, we're sort of at the High Gothic. We're going to be moving past the High Gothic here into the Late Gothic, something that is going to see a massive change to these structures because they've hit a certain limit. Unfortunately, with stone, you can only build so high because while stone is good with compression, you still have to get all that weight to the ground, and the stones of the foundation can only be so strong. It's a natural product. So they're going to have to look in other directions to enhance their religious spaces.